Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's in-depth ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. First of all, sorry if my voice sounds a little rough. I'm in kind of day 3 of my kind of rough symptoms here with COVID. Hopefully I'll be getting over this pretty soon here, but I got a lot of questions over the weekend and today about what's going on in India. Now, of course, there's been a lot of stuff that we've heard in the news, but I just want to talk about the weather of it. I'm going to start off with a discussion here about the Indian Monsoon we're forecasting this year. So the Indian Monsoon typically really starts to get going in June and then progresses through the month of July and reaches a peak in mid to late summer. So what we often watch is the advancement north of the moisture, which as of May 16th, according to the India Meteorological Department, is still out here, somewhere in the Bay of Bengal. So what we're going to watch here is the forward advancement of this. Now, any given year, when we try to forecast the strength of the Indian monsoon and for the production of the crops, of course, that are grown here, it's going to be have a lot to do with something called the Indian Ocean Dipole. And let's talk about that. So I'm going to show you an ocean temperature forecast from the European model. We've seen this a lot over the last couple of weeks, looking at July, August, and September. And during that time period, if you notice, there's quite a bit of warm water just north of Australia, here at kind of the island change making up, the Philippines, Indonesia, and such. While over by Africa, there's some colder water. This would be a part of what we call the negative phase of the Indian Ocean Dipole, which often results in anomalously westerly winds at the surface here. Ultimately, what this does is it drives a vertical circulation, which tends to promote a more active monsoon. In other words, coming from this direction, being earlier with above average precipitation. And just to show you that, let's go to Asia. Let's flip this over to a seasonal precipitation graphic, and we're going to look here at July, August, and September. What you notice is above average precipitation for much of India. So at this particular stage, when we think about what India will be producing this year, above average precipitation does tend to lead to an increased flood threat, but it kind of removes the major concern we could have in any given year of a subpar or a monsoon that performs below average, resulting in massive drought. So that's what we're currently looking at. I just wanted to bring you up to speed on that. The other big questions are coming out about South America. We covered last week some of the risk of frost, and I'm going to talk about that now. Your first map, though, shows you the next 10 days of precipitation. I just want to let you know the monsoon has shut down, so we're not going to be seeing precipitation coming back into this area in any sort of meaningful way for probably, not until September and October. Down in southern Brazil, though, so this would be Mato Grosso do Sul into Paraná, Santa Catarina, Rio Grande do Sul, this area, a lot of the Safrinha crop is still right now going through pollination and in the early stages of grain fill, which means to be drier during this time period could have a negative impact. But it was the frost issue that we were talking about. So I'm going to show you the next 5 days looking at temperature anomalies. What we see here is that some of these places are looking at upwards of a 5 to 8 degrees Celsius below average temperatures during that time period. Now, based on some of the model data, the region for greatest risk of frost would probably be into Paraná and then Santa Catarina. And it doesn't look like it, but you could fit the entire state of Illinois inside of Paraná. So this is a very large region. Now, the models are suggesting the temperatures get into the low 30s. There will be some regional patchy frost. More than likely, we're going to have to keep a very close eye on if that does any damage. But I just wanted to bring up to speed on the latest of what we're expecting over the next 5 days, which could again impact that Safrinha corn crop coming out of South America. Now, since we're taking this international look to begin with here, I want to show you another thing we've been discussing now for the last several days. It has to do with our tropical season. Now, I'm going to take you back to 2018, the end of May, around Labor Day weekend, 2018. And where you are in the world? Well, this is the Yucatan Peninsula, so that makes this the Caribbean. And this was subtropical storm Alberto. Now, Alberto, if you look at the path of it, came right here through the strait, went straight toward, right here in this part of Florida, the Panhandle, and eventually brought a lot of rain straight up here through western Tennessee, Kentucky, and then went right along the border between Illinois and Indiana, dumping a lot of rain. In fact, we got so much rain in this part of Illinois and Indiana that it didn't even need to rain in June, and we had enough moisture in the ground. My point is that this is a time of year where we have to start paying attention to some early systems. And there's some stuff going on right now. So what you're going to look at here is the probability of having a tropical depression form. And we're going to keep an eye on Central America and what we call the Caribbean Gyre or the Bay of Campeche. As we display this forward, looking here at this kind of 3-day window, okay, you start to see that the models, not just the European but the GFS, are trying to get something to develop somewhere in this vicinity. There could be a system that comes to the north out of the Caribbean and another one that comes here into the East Pacific. Now, at this point, I'll be honest with you, I don't have a lot of confidence in what I'm seeing from the models, nor would I ever consider myself an expert in predicting these things. What I could tell you is that we're just watching the model behavior at this point, and we know a couple of things about what's going on. Like, for example, the big jump out of the MJO, which is now wrapping itself through phase 7 very quickly, and is expected to kind of sit and live over in this space for a little while. A lot of this is associated not with, which I incorrectly analyzed beginning of last week. This is not associated with a weakening of the La Nina or anything like that. It's more associated with what we call a convectively coupled Kelvin wave, which we talked about last Thursday, that's kind of racing its way around the planet. And what it does is it gives us these really slanty diagrams here looking at velocity potential. And we see that right now, sitting on top of the Caribbean, there's good upward velocity. And then we see it again in about 8, 9, 10 days in that same area. So there's just a lot of support for this. Now, I did say that La Nina had loosened its grip a little bit, and it has, but it is still very much a big player with what's going on. So before I get to this, I just want to recap. We just need to keep an eye out here as we go over the next 7 to 10 days to see if something does develop possibly here that, while it could send moisture to the north and hit parts of the southeast, hit the cotton belt, come over parts of Florida, there's a lot of question marks about whether or not this thing could develop. My biggest question mark is the wind shear in this area is expected to be very high, which would make me think it'd be difficult for something to survive in that area. Okay, that's what I'm going to be watching. But back to this La Nina. 2 things I want to point out here. This La Nina has maintained strength well above what was forecast. And we've seen the temperatures stay steady here, and they've been cooling there. We can also see the negative PDO signal. That's the cold water off the Baja of California, the cold water off the Northwest, getting into the Gulf of Alaska. That's also been a strong signal. It's amazing to see the Southern Oscillation Index, which again is a measure of La Nina, just sticking around here. I thought it was going to break lower with time, but it just hasn't. It's maintained a value of about 20, and that's quite high. So given all of this and thinking about the tropics, we've now seen the newest updates from Columbia University with their IRI multi-model sub-seasonal to seasonal forecasting group, now keeping the probability of La Nina around well above 50% through the middle of summer and actually maintaining it closer to 60%. They've also backed off the probability of having El Nino develop anytime soon to less than 5%. So this is starting to confirm our suspicions that, yes, a third La Nina could be coming. And just to think about a time period that's happened in the past, this would have been in the year 2000 that we saw this, because there was one in 98, 99, and then in 2000. So we need to be thinking about that particular scenario as we go forward. This PDO signal is also quite robust. You can see, if we just look right down here, the values through April, minus 2.06. I mean, the last time we saw values this low were between that time period of 08 and 13. And so all of these things continue to push toward, the risk of drier conditions in the central United States. They just tend to push toward the risk of drier conditions, in the primary corn and soybean belt. It's not an absolute thing. It just increases the risk. And it tends to give us a suggestion that likes to dive into more troughs here in summer and just frequent more ridging there. And that's what we get concerned about, because if we come back to that tropical discussion, if the ocean temperatures are warm here and there's a ridge in place, well, if that ridge extends, maybe it's just high pressure from the central plains out, north of Bermuda. This could help guide systems in underneath it and again increase the threat of hurricanes hitting the Gulf Coast, the Southeast, and even up the East Coast this summer. So all of these things are kind of playing together right now, and I just want to keep you up to speed with what I'm watching. Okay, In the near term, we did get some brand new data just about an hour ago from the European weeklies. So what I'm now showing you is from today, the 16th, all the way out to July 1st, putting that whole time period together. I'm looking for the broader implications of what the atmosphere is conveying right now, which is to leave this trough possibly in place. All right? Now, you remember from last week, my concern is if this is here and it stays there through June and July and August, this tends to just send systems in. They turn north. They hit the Canadian Prairie. They hit the northern plains. They run over a ridge that'll set up somewhere in this vicinity. And if that's the case, well, we just tend to get a precipitation pattern looks like this. Now, the model's biased toward the near term, and that's why there's such dry conditions forecast here. There will be, listen carefully, there will be a lot of isolated storms in this area. It doesn't mean no rain. It just means large organized low pressure systems are not currently in this particular setup. They're going to go here, curling their way into the Hudson Bay as an example. That's why you see wetter conditions through the Canadian Prairie, northern plains where we don't want another drop of precipitation right now, but wet around the Great Lakes, eastern Corn Belt. And you can start to see the models hinting at two things. Some activity out of the Bay of Campeche, that could be normal for June. And then look at the southwest monsoon getting going. That tells me to expect heat in this whole area. And we're going to talk about that at the end of this forecast video. Again, just coming back to last week, we need to see if this breaks down. If that trough over the next 6 weeks shifts, flattens, moves, goes away, then this whole pattern will shift going into summer. And that's always a possibility. But I'm going to watch it carefully because that trough got us into this mess. We look back from April 1 to yesterday. We've been extremely wet in the northwest, extremely wet in the northern plains, very dry here, including the huge fires that have come out of parts of New Mexico. We'll look at those in a second. We did open up some planting windows here, but they've now been shut. And we know that the longer term risk is for midsection of the country drought issues. I could expand that down south as well. Okay, current soil moisture, saturated, lots of flooding. This is the area that I'm worried about expanding. And those are the two big things that are right now front of mind for me. The temperature pattern we're going to break away from, just naturally because we're going into summertime here. But we're going to hang on to our cooler bias in the northwest into the northern plains in the near future. While Texas initially continues to see extremely hot conditions, and we're going to start to see very hot conditions showing up in the Central Valley of California. So all of that right now is on our plate, and I'd like to show it to you in the near term. So take a look at this. This is today, right now. See the deep trough there? That trough continues through Wednesday into Thursday. It dives down here into the northern plains. I'll show you that system in a moment. Then it curls right back up into this system over the Hudson Bay. And this reinforces, watch, broader troughing over the Canadian archipelago, which then reestablishes another trough here, which picks up the jet stream momentum and sends it into the Pacific Northwest, such that by next week, we do it all again. See it? And the net effect of this is to give us this precipitation pattern over the next 15 days. So systems keep coming in like this, going through the northern plains, establishing over the Great Lakes. We leave this area drier, and we're keeping an eye on the tropics, sending moisture to the north. That's the way I would play out the next 15 days overall. Now let's get into the details of that, because right now, boy, the satellite imagery today was spectacular. Let's start on the East Coast. Big storm system here, a multi kind of, I don't know what you want to call this, kind of line echo wave pattern is sometimes what it's called, a quasi-linear convective system, or just a series of short bow echoes went through parts of New England, creating some nasty severe storms. And we also saw isolated severe storms in North Carolina. Now, if I keep playing this forward, look at the smoke. Gosh, I just want to go look at that closer. Look at the smoke right now coming out of these fires in New Mexico. Plus the isolated convection that's out ahead of it. Some of these fires here, like the Calf Canyon fire, already burned over 300,000 acres. And we've seen some pretty incredible views of this. Twitter's just been putting up some amazing videos of the pyrocumulus clouds from this. So I just want to thank those folks that are putting this up here. By the way, over the weekend, spectacular mammatus clouds. I got to show you this. in Oklahoma. And that same storm produced monstrous hail. That's 4.5-inch hail. This was over the weekend. And I got asked, could you send the link for that lightning data? Here it is, blitzertongue.org. Go take a look at it. These were live lightning strikes this afternoon. So there's the isolated convection here and back in New Mexico and Texas. And then all the storms are running up east. Okay. In terms of the fire threat, tomorrow on Tuesday, elevated risk here, critical risk inside this area, and a lot of isolated dry thunderstorms still in this part of Texas. On the severe weather side of it, this is this evening, and we're watching here again, and then watch. Tomorrow, this is Tuesday, broad area in the midsection of the country for severe weather risk. Thursday, that front lines out, could see a slight risk showing up in here, but then watch. Going into Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday. We got 6 days we're watching severe convection. Let's take a look at it piecewise here by using the high-res NAM first. So 8 o'clock tonight, this is where our storms are, isolated convection running here. Playing this forward into the overnight, and then working our way into Tuesday. Complexes of storms all throughout this area on Tuesday. Going into Wednesday, wet conditions in through here are going to shut down planting windows again, although there was a ton of progress made in the Corn Belt last week. And then we're getting ourselves set up on Thursday for the next system. So from there, let's go take a look at our multi-model analysis. European is on the right, GFS is on the left. I'm real sorry about my voice, folks. If we play through what we've already seen Tuesday into Wednesday, there's the complex of storms coming through Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon and evening. Watch the northwest for the next big system. Comes in here, sets up in the northern plains. This is going to be this upcoming Thursday night into Friday. And that storm system, as you saw, gets yanked straight into the Hudson Bay. And as it does so, strong to severe storms here Thursday night. And then it leaves this frontal boundary in through this area on which we're going to be watching on Friday night and Saturday morning, strong to severe storms. That front clears things out and high pressure moves in behind it, pushes all that moisture into the southeast for the weekend. Well, at least on Sunday night. But then behind it, the GFS is trying to kick off more storms in the plains, and the European is pushing them back here into the upper Midwest. But at this point, that's where the GFS is put in the tropical system, and the European is here. Again, we have big question marks on all of this, but I just want to keep you aware of it. Can we distill down what I just showed you in a couple of maps? Let's do that. European model first. So this was this afternoon. This is what's coming in tomorrow. So watch throughout the day on Tuesday, getting into Wednesday and Thursday. Let's stop at Thursday evening. Total precip by Thursday evening shown by the European model. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Let's stop it out here 1 week from the model initialization right there. Okay. Now compare it to the GFS. Very similar forecasts. So they both are seeing the same features, including that bigger storm system that comes out and curls up and drags that big front through us later this week. You'll see the temperatures in a few moments. By the way, the GFS is really aggressive on developing that tropical system. Big question marks here, but we'll watch it and talk about it later this week. Frost threat. Everywhere in gray is where we do expect to see a frost in the next 7 days. And take a look at these temperatures. Here's today's highs. We've already seen these. Look at tomorrow here in Texas. Deep into the 90s, triple digit here. And going from there into Wednesday, same thing. And into Thursday, here's the front. So what this is going to do is it's going to swipe through the northwest first, then come into the plains, pushing through the central United States, and eventually toward the east. And that's going to be a big cool down for later this week. Now after that, day 5 through 10 temperatures are cooler than normal. What I'm worrying about at this point is the heat coming into California. So there's this little ridge that's coming in while this trough exits. This is early next week. We're going to be seeing temperatures in the Central Valley of California well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, playing through out to day 10 through 15, notice we open this all back up for above average temperatures. And my focus is going to be right here, because the new long-range outlook suggests that from now through July 1, this is going to be the area that favors the most anomalously warm temperatures. And that's going to be my clue on where this early summer ridge could set up. If I could just give you one statement about it, I'm concerned about it setting up here initially in June, maybe early July, but I'm starting to see some indications that it's going to migrate west for August. And that'll change the precipitation patterns for a broad section of this part of the country and increase late summer heat risk in the west. I'm going to give you more on that as I continue to analyze it, but I appreciate your attention today. Hopefully my voice will be a lot clearer on Thursday. Talk to you then. Thanks.